Before we jump into this episode, I want to take a moment to tell you about the upcoming Texas Woodworking Festival, a 2-day celebration where makers and enthusiasts come together to share their passion for the craft. Join us for a weekend filled with creativity, community, and inspiration. You'll meet tool manufacturers, furniture makers, woodworking clubs, content creators, and more, all in one place with great food and drinks, and of course, all things woodworking. It all takes place in Austin, Texas on September 13th and 14th. The festival features an educational track on Saturday and Sunday, plus a special pre-conference content creator track on Friday, September 12th. There you'll have a chance to learn from masters of the craft like Gary Rogowski, Matt Kinney, Andy Rawls, and Kate Casey, just to name a few. Head to the TexasWoodworkingFestival.com for more details and to grab your tickets. Use the code MWA25 to get 10% off your tickets. I'll drop a link in the show notes. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, there's something for everyone at the Texas Woodworking Festival. Don't miss it. Welcome to the MWA Podcast. I'm Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Sean and Brian. Today, we're excited to welcome Mara and Robert Cagnetta from Sutherland Wells to the show. We'll be talking about their outstanding real tung oil finishing products, as well as Rob's work building preservation and restoration. Rob is also the founder of Heritage Restoration, Rhode Island's premier building restoration contractor. Well, welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Great.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all joining us as a guest, as well as being a sponsor of the program, which
We're
is
excited, happy to.
Hopefully that's working out well for you, so we'll see. Well, before we move on any further, let's give our patrons a shout out. So who do we have to thank this week?
All right. We know we always like to give that shout out to our Patreon supporters. Today, we're going to give that particular shout out to our friend Joe Brumley. Joe, thank you for your support, sir. And if you, dear listener, would like to join Joe in helping us out, you can go to patreon.com/MWA podcast. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Let's move on to what's in the shop. So, Brian, how's that reno going?
It's good. We have everything out of the room. Took the big chair that was in there. All the tools are gone, de-dusted. So now tomorrow the primer's going on the walls. So once it's, we have to do both the ceiling and the walls. So once that's done, it's time to start building the built-in bookcases, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I ordered some hinges from Lehigh Valley to do like the bench seat. And they are somewhere in the United States for the last 10 days. I have no idea. I'm sure Rob and Mara, you guys understand this with the USPS. That tracking is useless. So,
So I got one of the great stories going on right now is because, the stuff I sell, I got such a low volume. I don't, buy a lot of packing material. But one of the things I do buy are these pre-filled air pillows, okay? Because I don't want to spend the $1,000 for the machine and then the materials and stuff like that. So I just buy
air. Okay.
Yeah, I buy air.
Tracks. Okay.
Wrapped in plastic.
Yeah. So anyway,
exactly.
they ship it by USPS in 5 separate bags, each containing 66 of these, and they are all individually shipped. Now it's under one shipping tag, but like each tag, like each label on the box says 1 of 5, 2 of 5, 3 of 5, and they just randomly arrive.
My God.
And it is so well where I live and where they drop this off is susceptible to winds. So if I don't see them and they don't come out here, these things can blow away. And I've had that
100%.
happen. Yeah, end up in the canals.
Because even at 66, that has to weigh in the ounces category.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing.
Yeah. The weirdest thing today is that USPS dropped it off, and I guess they knew that it might blow away, so they put it in one of these USPS totes that they have. It's kind of a plastic tote, and just left it. I don't know if they're going to come pick it back up or not, but
I've seen those things used outside of postal use. I think they might be somewhat expendable.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least inexpensive to.
Yeah,
I think you have a new scrap storage piece.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Load that up with some 80/20
Anyway,
sorry
to jump on there, but that's
no, it's fine. Yeah, so
sorry.
Eventually, it's not Lee Valley's fault, but eventually it'll come to the house. So that's great. Excited to get that piece over so we can really start cooking. I was out of town seeing one of my kids. Every time I leave the area, something bad happens, right? About 4 days before I left, I'm out mowing the grass. I'm looking at the tree going, what tree's kind of leaning a little bit, like, maybe 3, 4, 5 degrees over. And this is last year we had a rodent of some sort eating at the roots, and I filled the holes and everything. Left. We had a wicked thunderstorm come through on that Thursday night. My wife calls me Friday morning. She's laughing. She goes, "Remember the tree?" So the tree was all the way across the driveway.
Oh no.
So thankfully the cars were out, so she could, she was, wasn't trapped there essentially. So I had to pull a Sean when I got home, fired up the chainsaw. And it's a Bradford pear, which I guess is good that it's gone because they're kind of invasive. So chop that sucker up. I got a big brush pile in the back that I got to burn, hopefully maybe this weekend. So yeah, I wasn't planning on that. But yeah, other than that, I got to clean my shop because I got to start making some cabinets and bookcases and type things. So I've got dust everywhere. It's a big mess. I probably got all the drywall scraps out. They're gone. But other than that, we're doing good here.
Yeah, time to break out the leaf blower and.
When my shop was in the garage, I did that all the time. I would just open up all the doors, stand in the back, fire that sucker up, and neighbor be damned, right? So it.
Let it all fly.
But now my shop's in a basement, and if I value my life/marriage, I should not do that, because that will be the end of me. And it was nice knowing you.
Well, then a nice shop vac session,
right?
Yes,
to clean all that up.
Yeah,
with a HEPA filter and all that, not let fines fly around.
Yeah.
Well, good on you. Hey, I offered to bring my chainsaw over if you didn't live so damn far away.
Yeah, I know.
I would have been there.
I realized
help out neighbors.
Yeah, the first time, I put the bar oil in and everything, and it's still like a 271, I think, with 20-inch bar. It's a Farm Boss, nice all-around chainsaw. But boy, it's just smoking all over the place. And I realized how dull that was. And then I remembered past me left a problem for future me. So I had to go find a chain that wasn't dull, found one in a box, put that on, and cut it right up. So
there you go.
Yeah, that's the fun. So, but Sean, how about you?
Nothing that exciting. Thankfully, my chainsaw time over the last couple months has hopefully come. Well, it's not ended. There's still another tree I need to chop up in my neighbor's yard. But speaking of my neighbor, it's lawn care time. As we this week battled 100-degree temperatures, you Texans, Kyle, I don't know how the hell you do it.
I don't know. Brian sent me a post today saying everyone in McKinney's dead. McKinney, Texas. There's some news weather guide. I guess something just messed up on his little screen when he's reading out temperatures. Like McKinney, Texas was like, what was it, like
101,000
degrees.
Oh no!
and he just went, everybody in McKinney's dead.
The surface of the sun, like that's crazy. No, but we were in the high 90s and high humidity. I mean, we get this, but this is like really early for us, and we're mid to late June is not the time that we normally get this. And just like leaving the office the last couple of days, and I just get hit with this wall of 95 plus temperature and higher humidity. It's just like oof. Anyway, in the last week, my neighbor had his septic system completely redone, which took up, the way his driveway is, half of his front yard. I could approximate about 2,500 square feet that is now just straw covering dirt with some seed that they don't know because the contractor put it down. But I quickly explained to him as I was watching him take a hose and a literal hand like watering unit out that if you don't water this will not grow.
Yeah.
It will not grow. And thankfully, I mean, for him, I have extra timers and sprinkler heads and stuff that I've used when I renovated my lawn. So I've got a whole system set up on his. I've got it programmed on my phone to to run this whole thing. So that's the current project is when I get home from work, I make sure the damn thing is running so that his lawn doesn't die on him more than it already is. I mean, it was completely to see it. It's not world changing, but I live in an area where we have well and septic systems. We don't have public sewers. And that sounds, if you knew where I lived, it's really odd because I'm a mile in one direction from a major shopping mall. I'm a mile from a major interstate in an opposite direction. It's just a weird little trunk of the community I live in that the city didn't run sewer down our street. We actually just got fire hydrants 5 years ago. So it's just weird. But anyway, nice big yards, but not a whole lot of utilities in that way. But to see what it took to excavate and drop a new tank and then leach field for his septic system, it's kind of jaw-dropping. And he told me it was north of $20,000 without including the permitting process to do it. Like, that's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
But thankfully, it's not my yard. I just need to.
You're just watering it for the guy.
I'm just watering it for him. That's all, with his water, no less. But it's a nice little project. And then my oldest son, who sucks at golf today, said he shot an 88, and so now I have to go beat him on the course, and that's a problem for another.
See, that sounds a little shady.
Well, no, he played with my younger son, who actually shot an 86, and I know he can score that. So he said it was legitimate, and he has a backing witness. So we'll see. To date, he'd never broken 100, and he shoots 16 over par. It's amazing at a decently hard course. But that's family fun for the future. Kyle, how about you?
Not too much. Been testing out a new tool from one of the friends of our show. Can't tell you much more than that, but if you've been paying attention, you might have seen something. I think he did post some stuff, but so I was doing that. So I got to call him tomorrow and give him some feedback. But yeah, it's pretty nice.
Nice.
And I finished up a new batch of stretcher drilling guides. So I got down to 0. So I got another 7 in stock. So that's good. So if you've been looking for one, now's the time to order it. And I've been preparing for this rocker build for my friend who's having a birthday. He's not retiring because I don't think will ever retire. But anyway, he's 10 years older than me. But I promised him a rocker when he retired, but he's having one of those milestone birthdays. So I figured, okay, well, might as well just build him a rocker for his birthday. No way is it going to be done by his birthday, though.
I was going to say, when's his birthday?
Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
All right.
But at least maybe I'll have it far enough along I can send him a picture of some of the parts bent at this point. Who knows? So what about you guys, Mar and Rob? What are y'all working on?
Oh, boy. Well, we're trying to keep a garden alive, which doesn't working very well.
I'm having a tough garden summer, and I just think it's that I need to put more compost in and haven't done that and just haven't had the time. So there's that.
We did a little traveling. Went out west.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah.
San Francisco and the great redwoods.
Which
magnificent just to be amongst such ancient
trees,
beautiful, humongous hunks of wood. I mean, trees.
Yeah.
Did you bring a chainsaw?
It's really magnificent. So no, I think
you're about to redo a side deck.
We do have a side deck. No, I'm in a house that it'll probably be done right before I leave. So
and just in time to start the next cycle.
Right. So I never seem to stick around in the house that
because it takes you too long.
Ouch.
Just
so
kidding.
if you didn't know, we're married.
I was about to say, I
can
tell
hear
you, y'all are married. Yes.
And we tease a lot, so it's all in good fun.
Yeah.
So
and we have a child home for the summer.
Right after her first year of college. So
right. And we found that we like her better out of the house.
Don't say that out loud. We like having her at home, but we really do enjoy her space. Like we love her dearly and we enjoy her company, but it's put a cramp in our style that we kind of got used to. Yeah.
18 years she was holding us back.
When my oldest went and lived on campus for a year, we moved the exercise bike into his bedroom, and when he came back a year later, he was a little upset.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. It's a good learning session.
Our dog is very unhappy about it. We had to put our other dog to sleep right before our daughter left for college last year. So, and I think that she has always really, really wanted to be an only dog. And then our daughter left for school, and all of a sudden she's the only dog, and she's getting all the attention and all the love. She took over our daughter's bedroom. She's 12 pounds. She took over our daughter's bedroom, and now that our daughter is home, she has been very unhappy.
Like not giving our daughter any time of day. I mean, she's known her as long as
that's kind of what's going
dog's
on.
Life.
Yeah.
And then have it so hard.
Exactly. Are you doing anything cool in the shop?
We just started making 24 mortise and tenon doors, all out of poplar, 1 3/4 thick, about 3 foot by 7'2". All these guys and I think there's 5 different styles that we have to make. I think a couple are going to be white oak, which is going to be cool. So a few are going to have some Sutherland Wells on it, but the rest of the poplar is going to be painted really cool. You know, I got a couple machines just for this job, and I feel like all they've been doing is setting up these machines. So it's been driving me crazy, and I just can't wait
And what's the building
to
they're
see them
being
working on.
made for?
It's some big pile in Newport, right in the water.
Fancy, yeah.
So it's like not a spec piece, but a commission that you're doing it
Well,
for?
yeah, it's they're doing a full makeover of this 1890s house in Newport, looking over Fort Adams. It's this really beautiful mansion.
Nice.
So there's a handful of doors around the house, but they want to match these doors to the old ones. So we're actually going to make a mortise and tenon and wedge the tenons the same way that they made them before.
Of course.
So it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's the first time we're really kind of getting the shop really hummed up for one big thing. We're usually doing lots of one thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, so this one's going to be cool to kind of make a couple dozen of these guys, you know, with these new machines, new old machines.
Oh, very cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's kind of exciting.
And you just finished the new finishing space too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope I did the right thing, but I made a finishing room inside our space. It's a block building with very few openings, but I made a space inside the space that we only push air into to try to reduce the amount of dust.
Mm.
You know, so
Okay.
I'm filtering the dust on the way in.
Yeah.
So it's a positive air.
Yeah. Positive pressure room, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I did a smaller version, and it kind of seemed to work. So now I scaled it up, and I'm hoping it's still going to work. You know, but it's always a challenge because our woodworking shop is sort of right next to it.
Mhm.
So the challenge of separating the two is I don't care if it's a garage size or 10,000 square feet. You know, that's always an issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Isolate.
taking care of the dust. Yeah. So
No,
what
I'm not good at
what do
it.
you
Not
have?
good at it.
Yeah. What do you have for dust control in your shop? Cyclone type stuff or what?
Yeah, cyclone and units that are. I mean, basically we'll have maybe 2 machines on every unit.
Mhm.
I'm not very good at like consolidating things. I'll just hang on to stuff for too long. So it ended up like we had a couple machines and one dust control system, and then we bought a couple more. So it ends up having these 5 individual units all around the shop. From the oldest 1980s versions to some nice cyclone one. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
I wish it was better.
Understood. Yeah, my dust collection system could use some help too. So anyway.
We have to be pretty anal about it. Like I make them every few years we'll vacuum and clean rafters and everything in the whole space.
Yeah. Mine's just kind of it's a cyclone, but it started its life as just a single stage dust collector where I added in one of those Oneida cyclone separators, super dust deputies, I think they call them. Huge thing to it with on a 55-gallon drum. So anyway, that's the only thing good about living here in the refinery country is I can get 55-gallon drums for a song. So anyway.
You can get them from us too.
Yeah, we can send you some if you want.
Oh yeah. Y'all are in that business too. We need to get rid of these things.
We were paying somebody to take, and we finally found a scrap metal place that will take them and pay us for them. So
that's nice. That's
not
nice.
a lot, but it's better than having to pay. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, before we get too much further in talking about Sutherland Wells, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourselves, where you grew up, and how you got into the finishing business?
You want me to go first? All right.
Sure,
Hi, my name is Mara Cagnetta. I grew up on Long Island. I came to Rhode Island for college and went to more college and then went to more college and graduate school, and somewhere in there I met Rob. And Rob, I'm a visual artist when I'm not doing Sutherland Wells, so that's my creative practice. And I taught for a very long time at University of Rhode Island and Community College of Rhode Island, and then I got into the finishing business because I was looking to leave adjuncting. And Rob, I told the story earlier at this party we had to go to. I never really paid attention to the stuff that Rob used in his preservation practice, except he was always talking about this stuff called Sutherland Wells for like the past 20 years. So it's like I knew it was a finish. I knew it was Tung Oil because he was talking about Tung Oil all the time, and he was just talking about Sutherland Wells. So he had developed a relationship with the previous owner, Mary, over the phone over the years of him using the finish and loving the finish and being obsessed with the finish. I mean, anybody who would listen to him, he would talk to them about Sutherland Wells before we even owned the business. So I had been looking to leave adjuncting. I didn't know what I was going to do. And it kind of Mary came down to vacation in Newport, and we had dinner with her, and she's a wonderful person. She is a wealth of finishing information. Like the woman has more finishing information in her head that I had any idea was possible. And she said, "Oh yeah, I'm getting ready to retire. I'm looking to sell the business. I would really like my employees to buy it." And Rob said, "Well, if that doesn't work out, let me know." And here we are. So that's how I got into finishing. And so I left adjuncting to run Sutherland Wells. And I have had it's been a huge learning curve for me. So I've learned so much in the past 3.5 years. Things that I never knew I needed to know. But now I do know them, and it's been really interesting. So I got into finishing as a Rob. He sucked me in.
Yeah, well, I don't even know how to keep going with that, but
Well, talk about your love of Sutherland
all right.
Wells.
Well, I ended up originally coming to Rhode Island for historic preservation and architecture, and I ended up graduating from Roger Williams and continuing on with working in the field. And it was around 2001 that we started Heritage Restoration, and not knowing that I was going to have more than like 3 or 4 of us kind of. But in that time, in that 25 years or so, Mara and I sort of just, stuck around, I guess, as it would be in Rhode Island.
Yeah, I stayed here.
And brought Sutherland Wells down here. So it's been really interesting just to kind of come from someone that was from Jersey originally, that transplanted to Rhode Island, and now I've been here 35 years. It's been a strange road.
And you're finishing? You want to talk about finishes? You should talk about finishes in old and historic preservation, because that's an important thing.
Yeah, and well, in the historic, when we're working with older buildings, where a lot of times we were running across issues where people didn't want to necessarily sand something down all the way to bare wood, or wood was really dry and it needed, something to help consolidate it and saturate it and sort of nurture it. And I was taught by the folks at Historic New England, which used to be the Society for the Preservation of New England, and they taught us a mix called Valpenterp, which is val oil, turpentine, penetrol, and varnish. And
Okay.
put it
Yeah,
on
I've heard
wood.
of similar type stuff where it's like a third mineral spirits, a third some sort of oil, and a third spar varnish or something like
Right,
that. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and all those, and the spar and the val oil was a petroleum based. I didn't know what they were at the time, but
Mhm.
the varnish definitely would have some of the boiled linseed oils as well as the resins, and but this, what it did is it sort of would saturate the fibers of the wood and help consolidate it a little bit without closing down the grain so much that you can't put a coating on it.
Right.
And then there were other times where we're dealing with old floors that you just can't put a sander to, so you have to like just clean them and coat them with something. And so it was sort of in the 80s, 90s, the finishes, they started to mess with VOCs, and they started to change formulas from less traditional makes of turpentines, and the turpentine started smelling a lot different, and all these things started changing in the 90s. And that's kind of when I found Sutherland Wells by someone who was working on a project with us, who was the most particular floor finisher I ever met in my life. This guy was always on his hands and knees, never like held a machine, other than on the ground. And then I realized that I can sort of have something that was more pleasant, rather than that stuff that turned more petroleum. And then what would happen was I would call the owner of Sutherland Wells all the time, Mary, and I'd be like, "Well, Mary, I want to color the paint. I want to color it a little bit. can I mix oil paint with it? And she's like, well, it's a little crazy, but I don't know why you wouldn't. Sure, you can create a translucent finish. Or I'd call her up and say, well, can I thin it out and put it on my sash and, before I paint them? And so her and I just, made had a real connection, because I would just ask to do the strangest things to sort of try to manipulate either finishes or conditions by using a finish. So that's kind of how Mary and I learned, found out about each other.
And also the other thing that I specifically do remember, when you found Sutherland Wells, you were really, really frustrated with polyurethane and the way it was failing. And that was so like that you had found this finish that doesn't fail.
Well,
it wears.
It wasn't the finish that was failing. It was me that was failing. So I
appreciate your honesty.
Well, no, I had a couple jobs. We did floor jobs with poly. And I still think the conditions changed overnight by the heat system not working, but I didn't get the bond layer to layer. And you can literally put your fingernail on top of the finish, and it would sort of disconnect the finish one layer from the next. Like it sort of delaminates it. I don't know if you've seen that in some stuff. But
the worst I've seen is when someone sprayed lacquer over polyurethane and it turned into a goopy mess. It would never dry.
And the smells. I mean, there was because my shop, the way it was set up, they carved out part of the shop for the air. I mean, for the offices, and the air is shared between the air conditioning and the heating is shared between the two spaces. And they were using that turpentine mix, and it smelled god awful. And I was sitting at the desk, and my eyes were like bleeding. So that's when we ended up switching to Sutherland Wells, finding out that there was something that did the same thing, but yet had a more pleasant smell, and actually was a hardening one.
Like to add, while we have a lot of preservation customers, one of the best parts of what I do is getting to talk to people who are creative all day, and people who are calling and they're making cool things, and I get to help them make them last longer and function really well and be more beautiful. So I really do enjoy that aspect of my job.
Yeah. Now, I never knew anything about Sutherland Wells until I'd been frustrated with all kinds of finishes I'd tried and stuff like that. And I'm going, okay, I'm just going back to a basic finish. And, I'm going to get some real tung oil. I'm going to get some, spar varnish and some, some mineral spirits to mix my own and stuff like that. And I knew David Diard was using something like that. Yeah. And so I was going, well, what type of varnish is he putting in his finish? So I called him up and he goes, oh no, I'm using Sutherland Wells now. So
it's great. We got to actually, he came to our shop pretty early on, and we started working with him pretty early on because he's pretty by Connecticut.
And before you go on, I should mention David Diard may have a new tool coming. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, cool. So we got to watch him work. We just did the Fine Woodworking New England event in May, and we were literally across from David, which was super cool. It was really cool to watch him work. And his chairs, benches, and stuff they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
Really, he's really talented. So I feel very fortunate to have him on our list of customers. And maybe he's listening to this. So hi, David.
Hopefully so.
Yeah.
Oh, well, fantastic. Well, so tell us a little bit about the history of Sutherland Wells. I mean, y'all are what, the second or third owners? Third owners. Okay.
So we're actually about to celebrate our 65th anniversary. So this is our 65th year.
Okay.
We're the fifth owner. So the Sutherland Wells was started by Frank Sutherland Wells, who we never got to meet, and he passed maybe a year. I think it was last year he passed away. And he was a visual artist, so he was an oil painter, and also a master finisher and furniture maker. And in fact, we just digitized a WGBH special about him. Yeah, we're going to put it on our YouTube for our anniversary.
Oh, so cool.
Nice.
Yeah, really cool. So he was apparently very eccentric and very, very good at what he did. And I guess in the 60s, he was frustrated with the petrochemical finishes. He was looking for a natural finish, something environmentally friendly that would mimic a French polish. And he learned about Tung Oil, and then the folks at Empire Varnish taught him how to polymerize it, which is our secret sauce. or the special sauce that makes our finishes different from, all the other finishes, all the other tongue oil finishes on the market. And started Sutherland Wells. And then it was North Carolina, started in North Carolina, then we believe Brooklyn with Empire Varnish. And then Mary Gotterweiss was the second owner, and she purchased it from him, I think, in the 80s, sometime in the 1980s, and moved it up to Vermont, where Sutherland Wells was, until we moved it down to Providence, Rhode Island, 4 years ago.
And really what Frank created was a hardening oil that didn't need any dryers, right? And because you polymerize it, what he was able to do is actually almost assist in its curing by actually creating friction. And so it's really interesting that he was trying to create a better French polish, because he does you can incorporate those methods in applying and manipulating the finish. So it was really for him, and there really wasn't anyone else cooking the oil to manipulate it to dry. Everyone was sort of using that chemical additive that would help in the curing, the Japan dryers or the other really nasty things that they started to ban, so then nobody would make it. So anyway, so Frank was about 65 years before his time.
Yeah. In terms of, like we love to say, like, the environmental consciousness is baked into Sutherland Wells. Yeah. So and Rob and I both feel pretty strongly about our environment. So I think it's a good fit for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, before we get into some of the details about your different types of finishes, tell us about some of the folks out there that are using your finishes.
Oh, we have some really, really talented furniture makers using our finish. We have preservationists using our finishes. We have floor folks. We have lots of luthiers who like to use our finish.
Nice.
We even have someone who makes drums who uses our finish. What are the other interesting? Lot of
it was
folks
put on a fishing line years ago.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Gun stock owners. We have a lot of gun stock customers.
Okay. Yeah.
Tape people, like, and it's interesting to see, like, in different parts of the country, some, like, people are making different things. So it seems like in, like, in the Colorado area, slab tables are, like, really, really big. So we have a lot of, like, slab table makers. And then, we have some epoxy people who do, like, epoxy river table kind of stuff. I mean, we kind of, like, the folks who use our finish kind of span. We have chair people, like, like David Giard and Sawyer Made.
And there's a couple renowned pieces. I know it's on the desk of the Maryland governor, right?
Oh, nice.
Nice.
And it's on the floors of Poplar Forest, which is Jefferson's place in Virginia. There's a really famous furniture builder that has been using our finishes for probably about 50, 40,
maybe like 40 years. Yeah.
I wish we could say, but
so we do, so we have a range of different kind of craftspeople using the finishes, which is exciting because it's cool to talk to people who make guitars who have different concerns than people who make tables, or people who are doing kitchen countertops, right? To the people who are, like, restoring windows, or right, so or restoring, like, the trim in a house, so it's right. So there's or like doing exterior furniture, or there's just a
it's on elephants.
It's on the elephants. Yeah. that is very cool.
So there's the Great Elephant Migration, which is
a non-governmental organization. It's a fundraiser for, I believe it's for the communities and the elephants that surround those communities in India. And they utilize some of the invasive lantana, which is like an invasive reed, and then they recreate all the elephants that surround these villages in these reeds on top of metal frames, and they're life size. They're huge, like they are elephant size.
And they travel in herds around the country. So they were in Newport.
I think Newport was their first destination in the States.
And the finish was failing that they were using. And they called us, like, No, she didn't even call us.
She
She
showed up.
stopped by the shop and is like, I have these elephants that need a finish, and I heard yours is the best. And I'm like,
Say
okay.
what?
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, elephants.
They are elephant sculptures.
Yeah, there's stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay,
if you Google the Great Elephant Migration, you'll
Yeah.
find them. But we also have some pictures of them on our Instagram feed.
That's probably one of the coolest things.
It's very cool.
That is cool.
And, you know, their exterior. So, you know, and that's, I was going to say, like, our finish doesn't have to be used for the greatest, like, finest pieces. You know, with these elephants, they're literally outside all the time. And every once in a while, they're just going to have to, you know, power wash them and then spray on some of our finish, you know, and the nails are going to be rusted, and, you know, it's just going to be this piece you're sort of doing just this preserving on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably one of the things.
It's
of recent times.
It's really cool. Like, you know, we've talked to the craftspeople from India who are making them, and, you know, we're probably going to have to ship some finish over to India. So that's going to be interesting because we don't ship internationally except to Canada right now. So, you know, it's, you know, stuff to learn how to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd recommend a company called Pirate Ship. Anyway.
Okay.
Seriously?
Seriously. Yes. They have some good rates, especially on some international shipping and stuff like that. UPS, regular mail. Then they do have their own international type stuff, but it's for smaller packages. So depending on how small y'all are shipping, you know, it depends. But you know, if it's something
Probably a
big,
drum.
if you're shipping a drum, they can probably handle it for you and at least get you some good rates. Yeah.
That's great to know.
And honestly, that's sort of been the key to the success of this whole business, is like, someone's like, hey, did you hear about this?
Uh-huh.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's going to change the way I do something. You know, this is fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, we've learned very quickly that word of mouth in the woodworking is incredibly powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's sort of that spoken endorsement, you know,
Yeah.
and not like, and that was one thing that Mary was never really about, is sort of putting Sutherland Wells out there in an egregious way, you know, or not selling out, but just not putting it, you know, not over. They always wanted to make a professional finish,
Right.
You know, they weren't
Yep.
trying to make a finish that just worked, one finish that works on everything. You know,
Yeah.
Frank was obsessed about, like, I think we cut the lines in half, and there's there's 30 of them, you know, and but he would just modify it a little bit. He's like, oh, this is best in this, you know, so it and that's what I really learned to love about the finish, and that's what I think others have learned, that one furniture maker I was telling you about, and others literally take a couple different of our finishes and mix them together, you know, and so it becomes a lot of fun, and that's calling Mary all the time. I would have fun with her.
Yeah.
Will this work? Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. and I couldn't do that I did that with Benjamin Moore a few times.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get to know them the way I did Mary.
Yeah.
Have
We
you
do
had
value. Oh, I'm sorry. We do really value the relationship we have with our customers.
Oh, I bet.
We answer the phone. Just saying. Mostly.
What a nice touch.
But we do call back.
in this world, that's a big plus.
Heck
Yeah.
We may get to this, but have you had to evolve the formula since you bought it?
No, I'm only hesitating because I think there's one ingredient that we're looking at that can't be sold over in Europe. So
Right.
we were looking to substitute it.
But then we just finally found a chemist to work with, and he said the substitute is worse than that ingredient.
Wow.
So
And
you
these
can get mad sciencey on this stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah.
really
That's
go
why,
down
like,
a rabbit hole.
we
Yeah.
were so happy to be handed just a really good formulas that are really straightforward. Like, some of the other stuff is like minor stabilizers or other things that help prevent UV degradation of the finish and so forth. You know, they're kind of like minor additives, but they're frowned upon in large quantities.
Sure. And that's only in the exterior line.
Yeah, so you know,
just saying.
we really haven't had to change out any major ingredient.
No.
I think if anything, we've been fortunate of the work that Mary had done before in now having a US based resource for the Tung Oil. Tung Oil is a Chinese sort of a product or a tree, and they started growing it 10 years ago or so, 15 years ago in southern or northern Florida.
Like the Panhandle of Florida, southern Georgia.
So when we started, we got the first shipments of American tung oil.
So we've been
which is
able to,
great.
we've been able to transition from almost all Chinese tung oil with a small amount of American, because Mary helped the farmer to get
certified by the
and
USDA
funding from the USDA. So basically, he's been taking up old tung oil plantations and replanting them to revive tung oil growing in the United States.
Awesome.
Which is very, very cool. So, but we had been importing, Sutherland Wells had been importing, and we still do, because we have a private label agreement with
Lee Valley. But
with a company, and they want the Chinese oil because their can labels already say Chinese tung oil on them, so we can't. So they get the Chinese oil, and we supplement it if the Gulf Coast people don't have enough, but they've been able to supply us with probably about 95% of our tung oil for the past 2 years, which is great on a number of different levels. But the thing that gets me really happy, well, two things. I love supporting American agriculture, and I love that we have a much lower carbon footprint in getting the tung oil up to us.
Is there any quality difference between the two?
quality, no. Color, slightly.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And
That's environmental, right? Like from when it's grown.
yeah,
Yeah.
it has to flower later.
So it's a modified variety from the Chinese tung oil.
Sure,
the tung oil
sure.
tree, yeah.
And but other than that, yeah, I think it's just sort of soil based and otherwise. But
Right.
molecularly, it's kind of the same thing, or based on the testing, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's different. It is funny as we cook it, it does expand and contract differently than the Chinese. But performance wise, we've noticed really no difference in terms of
Interesting. So, is the tung oil tree? I guess it is a tree, correct?
Tung tree.
Yep.
Yeah. Can it survive hard freeze?
Not after it blooms.
Yeah.
Like
Not
if
after
it
it-
blooms and it freezes, then you lose your
Crop.
your nuts.
But you don't lose the tree, though.
No, you don't. No,
Okay.
you wouldn't lose it.
Interesting. Well, I live on the Gulf Coast, and I need to plant a tree. So I was just
Oh.
wondering, might plant a tung oil tree.
Yeah,
you
I mean,
go. Up the
tung oil trees are invasive, so once you plant one, you're going to get a lot.
Oh well, never mind.
And also tung oil is actually toxic to humans. Like it's one of those natural toxic.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So the nuts all over the place would be.
You just
Not
don't want
good for
to.
the
You don't want
animals.
to eat them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just curious.
Yeah. No?
Well.
Good question.
So once you press the oil out, I assume that once you cook it, it's at that point non-toxic, or is it still toxic?
You don't want to drink it.
No.
Okay. Alrighty.
Once it's cured, it's totally inert. So it's totally
Okay.
food safe and stuff once it's cured. But you
Mhm.
want it needs to be cured.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Well, so
Something dries out of it that
Yeah.
causes a little bit of issue.
It hardens, so it's
Yeah.
not.
But it hardens completely, so that
Yeah.
licking it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
important.
Well, I know there are a lot of products out there on the market at this point that say tung oil or something like that, which don't have a lick of tung oil in them. So tell us a little bit about the advantages of real tung oil compared to some of these other products that are out there.
Bakers.
I'll take this one since I do this all day. Okay. So
Back.
a couple of things about tung oil and tung oil finish. First off, there are different ways to extract the oil from a tung nut. One of them is cold press, which we feel is a higher quality oil. And so we only use cold press tung oil, like olive oil.
Okay.
There's a chemical extraction as well, which we feel is a lower quality. Also, it's more greenish in color, and it doesn't smell the same way as the cold press does. So we start with only cold press tung oil. And then the other thing that so raw tung oil is one thing. And then there are tung oil finishes. So raw tung oil is going to be just raw tung oil, no matter how it's extracted, right? Nothing added, just straight oil. And then, which is notoriously slow to dry. It's a great penetrating finish, but it's notoriously slow to dry. And to really get protection, you need to put on many, many, many layers. And so that's a frustration that people have with raw tung oil. The other thing is, though, with tung oil finishes, there's no regulation on what can be called a tung oil finish. So it could you could buy a tung oil finish and it may or may not have tung oil in it, which is fascinating.
Those ones that like it mimics tung oil performance, but isn't actually containing any tung oil, kind of.
I mean, we don't really know because
Yeah.
you know, we're really invested in what we do, but
Sure.
this is like a fact.
What happens is like if people can mix in other resins, other components of the finish that will harden. But then you have like filler oils, and the filler oils can be like the soybean oils
Mineral oil.
There's not cottonseed oil.
Maybe.
I've seen there's a bunch of finishes that or raw linseed oil. You know, they all just act as those base oil fillers.
Mhm.
And then tung oil sort of does the same thing. It just acts as sort of the oil that ends up penetrating and being left on the surface, but then it'll harden by the resins they add, if that makes sense.
So our finishes contain in every can a minimum of 25% oil. So you're actually getting tung oil. And then we take and then what separates our finishes from all the other tung oil finishes on the market is that we put our tung oil through the polymerization process, which is, it's basically, Rob has alluded to this, we cook it. And originally it was cooked in this metal tank over an open flame. And we have the tank in Providence there. And there is a picture on our Instagram of it. It's kind of wild. We don't cook it like that anymore. We're a little more sophisticated with it, but we cook it basically right up until the point before it's going to start to solidify, like it turn into a jelly. So what that does is it changes the molecular structure of the oil to make it more susceptible to oxygen. So it's partially cured once we polymerize it. So that allows the oil to dry faster and harder, and a little bit more waterproof and glossier than raw oil. And that is also what allows us to make our finishes without adding a lot of nasty chemical into it, which is how we get to Green Guard certified products with a traditional oil finish and VOC compliant finishes, so we can sell in all 50 states. So that's the big difference between what we make, and that, you know, that's what separates Sutherland Wells from other finish, I would say.
Okay, cool. Now, when y'all are making these now, how big is this operation that y'all are making? Are y'all making like thousands of gallons at a time, or?
You know, it was funny that dinner that Mara was talking about before. You know, I think it was sort of shocking to us that she can produce so much with so little. So really, I never realized that I talked to the whole operation when I used to call up to Vermont, all three of them, right? So, and John didn't necessarily do any of the production part. He did some of the labeling.
Did labeling, yeah.
So, you know, it's something that we can definitely have one person making it almost pretty much on a full-time basis. And then a couple other people shipping and labeling and you know, and then Mara's in the office. So, you know, it's about 4 or 5 of us that sort of participate in the manufacturing and getting it out the door.
But everything is handmade, and we make it.
And well,
like I had envisioned.
Bespoke finishes, yes.
Yeah, I had envisioned like these big, like we were going to Vermont to look at the business. I had envisioned these like big tanks and like, you know, like what you would envision in it.
Like a brewery, yeah.
Like a full brewery.
Like metal, like, you know, massive. And I could like, what are we doing? How are we going to get this down to Providence? And we get there and everything's made in buckets. And we were like,
wow. Breaking Bad kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
A bathtub's involved somehow. It's really wild.
No bathtubs.
and you know, and it kind of makes sense, you know, like it's all a hardening oil. So unless it's going to be continuously run through it, we would have to clean all the machines.
Oh, sure.
So what we end up making is enough to kind of split up and then maybe put into a barrel. And then once we can take it out of the barrel, we make it into 9-gallon batches, and then it gets split up into the different containers. Okay. So, you know, and then we also have to be mindful of all of our codes and so forth. So we're only allowed to have so much product sitting on a shelf,
right?
Because fire marshals and so forth don't want to have it sitting in all these tiny little cans. So. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I was talking to some of the larger manufacturers about their process, and since their oil doesn't really harden, it can kind of sit in the lines overnight, you know, and ours wouldn't do well if you did that. So it's really, you know, it's not disappointing. It's sort of like, wow, you guys really just pour out every can and you have to hammer on every lid.
I like to say we are old school. And we even hand label our cans are hand labeled.
So it's but you know, so it's also a good way. You know, our certain finishes do have sort of a life cycle on them. Other finishes last longer, but as far as, you know, we really don't have anything sitting on the shelf that's
for too long. Yeah.
4 or 5 months old.
That's really nice to know.
It's nice.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
no old stock, really. No excessive
and
stock. It's
you know,
all pretty
right. Yeah, they're all fairly fresh, and you know, it's also something that it keeps us nimble enough to be able to react to people's special orders.
sure.
So
Yes,
there
not
are times,
overblown with back orders or not back stock.
or just the wrong size, right? I mean, you know,
that too.
people ask us for like 3 or 4 pails of stuff, and it's not like we're going to have pails sitting around. But you know, we have the pieces that we can put together in a day's time.
Right. So.
You know, but it's cool. I think it's been something we've been learned to get a really good pace with. We've gotten really good at sort of predicting. You know, I was never in sales or manufacturing before this, and you know, so there is something that's really nice about some predictability and rhythms to it that still don't make any sense to me, how things are predictable as they are. You know, but much different than the contracting service side of things. You know, so I think it's been fun to sort of play with how we're making things and how we're getting them out, you know, how we're shipping them, or you know, and who we're relying on to get it there, how we have to pack it. You know, we're really proud of our packaging. You know,
because UPS is, you know, you have to pack for UPS. Everything has to be UPS proof because we want our cans getting to our customers.
Sure.
In good condition.
Right.
Yep.
Good condition, good time.
Yep. So, there's one particular jig I sell that I have to, you know, put a box inside of a box and cushion it around to UPS proof it. Yes.
Yeah.
And these are things I never really thought about when you receive stuff. You know, you never on the back side of it, like, oh, how the heck did they put this whole thing together?
And I will say we have a great team. So you know, we're very fortunate.
But it's cool. It's cool to find that, like, hey, there's a manufacturer out there that makes a box that fits just this thing, and you know, and it's kind of cool once, you know, I had the in to you know, the people that make the raw stuff, you know, so all of a sudden I'm asking, you know, the guy that sells us our chemicals for stuff that I can use for restoration. You know, like, oh, well, I don't have to buy from this guy. I can buy 50 pounds of it from this guy, you know? So it's really kind of a cool world. Like I feel like I have fun taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to buy mineral spirits anymore.
I know.
Yeah. Well, you know, you've gone off the deep end if you buy a CNC to do nothing but cut boxes for you.
No, we have a great box company we work with.
That's awesome.
Yeah, let them buy the CNC. Yeah, exactly. Well, so tell us a little bit about the different types of finishes y'all offer. One thing I would notice, if you go out there to YouTube, friend of the show, Brian Brazil, at his Woodworkers Guild of Rhode Island. Well, it's not his, but I think he was a president. I think now he's maybe the treasurer. I don't know. Anyway, y'all had a great little interview there, and it's out there on YouTube. And one of the things I really liked about it is you had this, I guess, PowerPoint presentation, but you had this thing that basically broke down the different types of finishes that y'all sold. Yeah, and that's pretty cool. So tell us a little bit about the different types, because it looks like it's all just, you got the raw tung oil and then you're adding stuff to that to come out.
Rob loves that tree. Yeah. All right, I'll do this because we could be here a long time if you start talking
about the tree. Like there was definitely discussion about the tree, and I've been validated. You realize?
I know. So the tree remains.
Sit back.
Okay, great. All right. So all of our finishes start with our polymerized tung oil, and then we have a number of different lines. So the most basic lines we make are our original formula or botanical formula. These are both interior formulations, and the original, and they're both Green Guard certified, and they're both VOC exempt. and they pretty much look the same when they're done. The difference is that the original formula contains our polymerized tung oil and odorless mineral spirits. And our botanical version of the original is polymerized tung oil and a citrus-based solvent. So it has no petroleum products in it. So that's our original. That's interior. It is straight polymerized tung oil with a solvent. It can be built. It's penetrating and both film finishing building, which is one of the other cool things about when you polymerize oil. It's not just penetrative. As you start to saturate the pores of the wood with the oil, it starts to build a film finish once you reach the surface. So it also, that adds protection to it. So you get kind of the best of both worlds that way. And then we make an exterior line, which is basically our original formula. So polymerized tung oil, odorless mineral spirits, and then UV guards and fungicides, so that the oil can hold up outside. And what we like to tell people is that this is not an exterior finish that you're going to put on and never touch again. Yeah,
there's not one.
There is one.
There isn't one.
Yeah.
Even
They don't
paint,
exist.
you have to repaint after a
Yeah.
while.
So the exterior finish that we recommend a yearly maintenance coat. It's a beautiful finish. It makes everything look beautiful and great. I mean, we have furniture that we bought right before we got married. It's Australian teak furniture,
Mhm.
and it looks new still because we oil it every year.
It wasn't last year we got married.
No,
No.
I mean, it's like 20. It's like 20. The furniture is 24 years old, and it still looks great because we take care of it. We oil it, and basically we just take it out, give it a little clean, and just rub the oil in. So it's
Nice.
really easy to use. It's really nice.
We
You mostly. I do the
Yeah,
porch
I know.
furniture. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Most of the videos of the exterior, like on the social
Filming me.
medias, it's Rob
Yeah,
doing the work,
That's
not me.
fine. No, I didn't
So, and then we go to our resin fortified finishes, which is our wiping varnish line and then our Murdoch's line. And I'll talk about the wiping varnish first, just because it's a little bit more simple. The wiping varnish is equal parts polymerized tung oil to the resin that we use, which is a duralgid resin. It's a clear, non-yellowing, very durable, not plastic looking finish resin. Excuse me. We don't, at Sutherland Wells, we don't like our finishes to look plasticky. So it's a really clear finish. Rob uses the Murdoch's line a lot, and the finish, our finishes that are resin fortified look like tung oil finishes, but they hold up with the durability of a resin. So those are really nice products. And the wiping varnish is made to be wiped, comes in low, medium, high, and sealer. And it's just tung oil, the resin, so equal parts, and then our odorless mineral spirits. And so that is a VOC compliant product. I forget what the VOCs are, but we can sell it in all 50 states. Then we move over to our Murdoch's line, which is more of a hybrid system. It starts with our hard sealer, our Murdoch's hard sealer. And this is the logo on that can is a sailboat, because Frank named two products, Murdoch's and Millie's, after his grandparents. So his grandfather was Murdoch and he was a sailor. So there's a sailboat on the can. And so hard sealer is mostly polymerized tung oil, small amount of that same uralgid resin, a little bit of odorless mineral spirits, and a little bit of our citrus-based solvent. So it has a citrusy scent to it. And it's a standalone finish. So after like 4 coats, it's a standalone finish, satin sheen. That is our best-selling product. It can be wiped, it can be sprayed, it can be brushed. We even have a customer who likes to use pantyhose to apply, which I find just people do very interesting things, and the creativity on application sometimes really surprises me. And he swears by it and he loves it. And, my feeling is if you're doing something that works, keep doing it.
Right.
So hard sealer can be standalone. It's also the base coat for our top coats. And in between the hard sealer and the top coats, which are U500, we make something called hard oil, which is basically a traditional varnish. So it's a solvent, it's a resin, and it's an oil. Right? Am I saying this right?
That's
Rob
it.
likes to talk about
The
this
triple.
way. So it's the triple.
Right.
That can be a standalone finish. It has more resin in it than the hard sealer, but it's a blend of resin and polymerized tung oil with some solvents in it. And then it can be standalone, so you can use it on its own, or it can go on top of the hard sealer. It's more protective than just the hard sealer alone. And then we have our most protective line, which is our U500 series. And that was formulated as a floor finish. It's mostly uralkyd resin, solvent, and then a small amount of tung oil in it. It goes on top of the hard sealer. So if you're going to use that system, it's great on floors, kitchen countertops, tables, bathrooms, anywhere where there's going to be a lot of use of something. We would always, like a high use thing, we always send people to that system because, we have it on our kitchen table. We have it on our dining room table. Kids, arts and crafts, spills, hot mugs, wet mugs, no rings. That our kitchen table was finished, like 11 years ago. It needs a new coat. It's wearing, but it looks great besides the wear. And so the U500 can be sprayed or brushed, but not wiped. And that comes in a satin matte and a gloss, but you need to put that on top of the hard sealer. So that's a system. You would start 2 coats hard sealer and then at least 2 coats of the U500 on top. But what you get is a finish that looks like a tung oil finish with the durability of a resin finish. It's a really, really nice product. So that's our Murdoch's line. Murdoch's and wiping varnish. I'm going to be very specific and explicit. Our interior finishes, they should not be used outside. They will not last.
Don't pay attention to the bullet.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a little misleading. We also make something called Millie's, which is technically part of our botanical line, but it's kind of an outlier because it has beeswax in it. So it's also Green Guard certified. It is polymerized tung oil, that's citrus-based solvent, and beeswax. And it has a different application than the rest of our finishes, which I'm not going to get into here, but it's all over the website and all over the can. Millie was Frank Sutherland Wells' grandmother. We love that. And it's a great, classic butcher block finish, right? So it's great on cutting boards. It's great on wood turners love it. Some people use it on furniture. It's a particular aesthetic.
Southern people have used it in the South on the
Floors, yeah, because people like wax floors. So that's the Millie's. And then we make a couple of waxes. We make Teddy's polymerized tung oil paste wax, which is a new formulation that we developed based on some research Mary had done and never finished. So we finished it. Teddy was my grandmother, so we're continuing on that tradition. And that's just a traditional paste wax finish. Contains polymerized tung oil, beeswax, hemp seed oil. It's no VOCs, wipe on, wipe off. Although buffing off, I think we all agree that it's a little bit more effective when you buff off, but you can wipe it off. It's great on furniture, wood turnings. It's similar to Teddy's in the aesthetic. It's just faster.
Okay.
Millie's.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Millie's is basically a liquid version
Of Teddy's. Right.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
And then we make something called Slicky Wicky Witch's Wax, which is a lubricant wax that Rob formulated to replace butcher's wax for window restoration. So they do a lot.
See, that was another smell thing. I didn't like the way they smelled the butcher's wax.
Yeah.
The butcher's wax was just so, I don't know. There's something that they did to the turpentine that makes it awful.
And then you had customers complaining.
Yep.
So Rob's like, well, what if I made my own, wax and use polymerized tung oil in it? So then it's kind of nurtures the wood as it's being used. And so that's polymerized tung oil, carnauba wax, paraffin wax, and beeswax. VOC, and it's great on windows, wooden drawer slides. It's great on metal tools. So we just did a video.
Yeah, I was about to say, I can put it on my table saw or joiner.
Yep.
Yeah, what's nice is that it with tung oil and you're not really left with the residue that's going to spoil.
Mm-hmm.
And nor is there so much beeswax in it that it's going to leave a film that's going to attract dirt. Right. I mean, you will have to kind of clean it over time, but it's the paraffin and the carnauba wax that are really kind of providing that slippery surface. That's kind of why the Slicky Wicky was great.
Yeah.
And it's good for window jams because the polymerized tung oil sort of penetrates in and kind of hardens the wood a little bit.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We found that actually it works really well on windows, especially.
Yeah, but a lot of our furniture
tools.
makers like it, for the drawer slides,
Screws.
or they coat screws in it, and screws go in more easily. And then we make some accessory products. I think, did I cover everything? We make some
Stains.
Oh, we make stains. How could I forget?
They're dye-based stains, and we start with powder dyes, really high quality powder dyes. that we end up mixing into our hard sealer. So they're concentrated. So we do our best to sort of make a really strong color out of it that you can dilute with any of our finishes and sort of change the concentration of the dye.
And you can match them too. So you can make your own colors from them. Right, Rob's so when we reformulated the stains, which is actually the one product we sort of changed when we took over Sutherland Wells, it was because Rob does so much color matching in his preservation work that he really wanted to create a really high quality stain that he could have a palette basically, so he could mix and match to match existing stains, and that's
and we manipulated some of the colors to sort of mimic the colors you really can't get with others. So we made like a orangey yellow color that gives you that sort of look that old wood gets, that when you have old varnish on it,
right?
That pumpkin sort of color.
Pumpkin pine. Right?
Yeah, it's not pumpkin, but it's so. We ended up, and then ended up going straight for dyes instead of pigment-based colorant finishes or pigments, just by the nature of how they're playing with the wood. The dyes give us a lot more depth of the finish, and you get that sort of chatoyance more when you're using a dye as opposed to a colorant that is sort of laying color on top of the wood. So we just kind of felt that and we were already making stains using dyes. So it wasn't that much waste, honestly.
So yes, I don't neglect our stains.
Yeah,
I always forget about the stains.
We also do a custom. So if people needed like a yellow or blues or green,
or they have something existing that they need to match, they'll they can send us a sample and we'll match a color for them.
And sometimes I'll just send them a crazy range. It's like so it's somewhere in between these two. And
then we make accessories. We have a couple of accessory products.
But we don't make them.
We do.
Well,
we make a bowling board, which is a conditioning beeswax and mineral oil conditioner for cutting boards and whatnot. We don't like to call it a finish because it's not a finish because it wears too quickly.
Right.
Mineral oil is evaporative, but it's a great conditioner in between finish coats. So we put it on our cutting board, which is finished with first Millies, then Teddies. Every 2 months, we have a big cutting board that sits on our counter, and we throw some bowling board on it and just keeps it hydrated and protected. And then we make this great stuff called Tung Oil polish, which I can't speak highly enough about. I love this stuff so much. It is the nicest wood polish we make. It can go on. It's great to use with our finishes. You can use it on any finish. And it's polymerized tung oil, a little bit of mineral oil, tiny little bit of beeswax. It just makes everything look beautiful. So it's just a great maintenance product to keep a finish looking really good.
It's really good when we go to a show and like we're displaying finishes that people are touching all the time.
Right.
So the tung oil polish ends up making everything look absolutely not.
It really does.
Can you use it on bowls?
Yeah.
Yep. I mean,
we would probably recommend either Millies or Teddies for bowls. Because it has a little bit of beeswax, and then you get the tung oil into the wood. It's going to harden. It's going to be more protective. But you could certainly polish it after with the tung oil polish. Okay. So it's more of a maintenance product. And then we make a wood cleaner. Our finishes don't love cleaners that have soap in them. So any surfactants or anything, and that can cause problems with the finish. So we make our own wood cleaner, or we do tell people, and this is for anybody who's using our finish or has a product that has something made by somebody who uses a finish, either use our wood cleaner or use vinegar and water solution. White vinegar and water. Those would be because those will not gum up or cloud up the finish.
Interesting. Well, I know one thing, especially Windsor chair makers and stuff like that, because we do the milk paint, then we oil the paint. Now, a lot of people like to put wax after they've oiled it. So do any of those waxes, do you recommend for that? Or would any wax, most people use just a normal paste wax or something like that.
It sort of depends. Like with the Slicky Wicky, you're getting more of a sheen to it because it's paraffin in it, right?
Yeah.
The Teddies being beeswax and tung oil. The beeswax is, unless, like Mara said, you can really buff it to get more of a sheen out of it.
Right.
If you're just sort of wax on, wax off, you're going to have a little bit duller of a finish. So it really just kind of depends on where your final like
Aesthetic
palate
is, yeah.
you know.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. And yeah, if anyone has
of that-
questions, call Mara and she will.
Well, and of that, like that's what I had learned years ago from Mary. It's like, hey, I'm gonna put this other finish underneath. Can I put yours on top?
Mhm.
And that was something she always encouraged. She's like, yeah, he's like, if you want to paint a floor, you know, and then on top of that floor, you want to put some protection on it, you can put the hard sealer on that and the U500 on, you know, and you're gonna have a really nice protection. You know, even we had this 1890s faux finish that was on this bedroom that we ended up, it was kind of dry and cracking a little bit. It was definitely a resin-based finish on there. I ended up cleaning all of it with some vinegar and warm water, and ended up just wiping our botanical on the whole room. And it just kind of rejuvenated all the finish that was kind of drying out a little bit, and just give it a really, really nice sheen. So it's fun to play with. Like there's definitely times you're going to want something more of a wax base to maybe have that duller sheen, or maybe want to go with something like the Tung Oil or even some of the resin based finishes on top of.
Okay.
But
all right. Well,
I think I'm sorry.
ahead.
The only thing I wanted to just sort of distinguish is that chart you were talking about. I'll need to jump back to that. So the idea is that you've got our polymerized Tung Oil on one side and you have the resin on, and our finishes are a blend of those two things. Sometimes it's just all polymerized Tung Oil, sometimes it's mostly resin, but then sometimes they're so.
Okay. It helped when I saw it. It helped clarify your product line. So anyway,
I'm so glad it was useful.
yes. I think I stepped into something right there, but anyway.
No.
Nothing too deep.
Well, Rob, I want to talk to you about your restoration business, but before we get to that, let me ask you about, you mentioned something about refreshing the finishes and repairing the finishes. So tell us a little bit about that and how that's different than what most people run into with, you know, using your standard wiping varnishes and stuff.
Yeah, I think it really there's a lot of times we're trying to figure out what someone did years ago, right? And you know, I think, and then there are times that we don't really want to take it all off, or we really want to preserve it, or there's sort of an outcome or that we're looking for that's either keeping a certain aesthetic or keeping something intact or layers intact. So what's nice is knowing that we can use the finish in different ways to sort of either provide a permanent protection or get more into something that just might be rejuvenating a finish on a quote unquote temporary basis, right? And we had the conversation with the folks from I forget the name of the college, but there's
the Mark
outbuilding,
Twain
the
house
Mark Twain.
at Elmira College. Yeah.
So what's really interesting is years ago they used a shellac on the interior of this building, and it was an unconditioned space, and the shellac really shrank and just left the kind of mess on the wood. So we were talking to them about the fact, well, they're going to strip everything down. So how do you treat something like this over, you know, sort of a long period of time? And we talked about, you know, more protection with the varnish, high resin content. If you're going with something like a marine spar, I said, but just beware, in 15, 25 years, that finish, something's going to make it fail, right? It's not going to delaminate per se, but there's going to be something that infiltrates, or water or sun or something that's just going to make the wood open up and the finish peel. And so you're going to have intermittent failure around this space in 25 years. But you're also going to have like 80% of this finish that's still hard as a freaking rock. So you don't, like, you're going to have to then reverse it. So in 25 years, someone's going to have to figure out how to reverse something you just, you know, that not just something you applied. So it became this sort of, we came to that, the better conclusion, which was, well, if you put on the polymerized Tung Oil, you're putting on a finish that's going to slowly degrade over time. It's going to react to the oxygen, and it's just going to really just dissipate. And if you have UV on it, or you know, sun and water on it, does it have less water? but the finish is just going to slowly dissipate. It's not going to shrink. It's not going to fail in a delaminated way. So it became sort of a really cool solution to say, okay, well, we're trying to do the least amount of harm here. So I can put on an oil that's going to harden, that's going to protect, but I can take it off if I ever wanted to, or I could just leave it alone and walk away, and then in 50 years it's going to be there.
And the short answer to the question
What was
is
the question?
Once you put our finishes on, you don't ever have to sand it back down to the bare wood to reapply. So the finishes will wear, like Rob says. It's not going to delaminate. It's not going to do anything funny. It will wear. It will lose sheen. You just need to recoat it. So basically, at that point, you give it a good scuff, a good clean, and recoat it. So you're never, which is, I mean, I think if I was an actual woodworker, which I'm not, I just pretend to be, but no. If I were an actual woodworker, I would really love that, because sanding, no offense to all you people who love sanding, I just think it's a very unpleasant activity. And so I would like to avoid doing that as much as possible if I were a woodworker. It can also be touched up, so if there's a spot, you can spot touch it up by cleaning and scuffing and recoating. So just know when you do that, the sheen can be slightly different, even if you're using the same sheen product, because you're putting new oil on. So it's going to be a little shinier until oxygen starts to interact with it, and eventually it will meet the sheen that's existing.
And that's a good point I wanted to bring up that I forgot, as about your different sheen. So you can basically buy your gloss sheen and cut it with either mineral spirits, or if you use the botanical line, the citrus solvent, to create your own different sheen, whatever you want, whether it's matte or semi-gloss or satin or gloss, correct?
That is in the original botanical lines. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
And we do have instructions for that both on our website and on the can of the original, and soon on the cans of botanical, because we're redoing all the labels.
Yeah.
So,
when I first, I guess when I first bought your finish, I bought the botanical line, and David was kind enough to tell me about that. So I just bought the gloss, and then I bought the citrus thinner, and so it makes it, not only can you make your own sheen, but it also makes it more economical for you if you don't want that gloss sheen.
Yeah, and you can also make your own sealer from that, which is great. So you can get some sealer. In those two lines, in the original, the botanical line, the sheen is controlled by how much oil is in the formulation and how much oil is left on the surface, which allows you to modulate it based on how much solvent you're adding to it, which is really nice. The Murdoch's line and the wiping varnish are not quite the same. They're not work in the same way. The Murdoch's line, the U500s, which are the ones that are come in satin, matte, and gloss. It's late. Satin, matte, and gloss.
Yeah.
You could cut that out if you want, as I make up words as I talk. The sheen in those we control with matting agent. So.
Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. So, so where can folks buy your products at?
So let's see. We sell to all 50 states. We ship to all 50 states, so you can buy them direct from us. And then we have a list of dealers across the country on our website. And we're growing that as we speak. So we're adding new dealers as we can.
Because UPS costs money, I would always go on the website, and you can see if there's someone local to you.
Right.
That because it would be the same price in the store as it is online, but you don't have to pay for shipping if you're buying it in the store. And if it's not in the store, you could always tell us about your favorite store close by, and we'll be happy to reach out to them.
Yeah, because we've learned that there's a particular type of store that our finishes do very well in, and so those are the stores that we're really interested in selling with. We're a tiny little small family mom and pop business. Yep. We like working with independent stores. Yep. And so, and then so our website, sutherlandwells.com, Atlas Preservation sells our finishes online and in their store. And then we have, different, and the Color House as well has our finishes on their website. That's a Rhode Island distributor. And then we have stores across the country. And again, we are working on building that out. So if there are listeners who like our finishes and they have this great place that they love, give us a call, let us know who they are. Because
if you don't have a store nearby that sells your finish, then call go to your website, give you a call, see what you need. And you can use our discount code MWA25 to get 10% off your first order.
There you go.
Or your second. It's just one. It's a one order coupon, so you get to use that coupon once. But yes. And we are very excited because we just started working with a store in Berkeley, so it's our first California store.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's very exciting.
And a store that someone who uses our finish told us to stop by.
A few different people. Yeah.
So
it
definitely helps us.
Yeah.
Gives us a
Exactly.
reason to go to California.
Yeah, exactly.
Who needs an excuse? Come on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, excuse, that's a business expense now.
There you go.
partially.
Anyway, well, so switching gears. So, Rob, so tell us about what you do in restoring historical buildings and your business, Heritage Restoration.
I mean, yeah, we're kind of lucky to be preservation specialists in because we happen to be in a place that has an amazing concentration of historic buildings. Rhode Island has about 400,000 buildings that were built before 1950, and there's only 1 million of us that live in the state. There are those that complain when they have to go across the state, but it'll literally take you less than an hour. So it is funny that way. So
Scale is interesting.
it's very interesting. But
I can't even get out of Houston on an hour.
Right, you wouldn't be in the suburbs yet.
Yep.
No, it's very quirky place like that, and but we're very fortunate. I mean, there was the earliest settlements were only 60 miles to our east, and so we ended up having a large concentration of National Register buildings, which are those that are protected by federal law, and then we have lots of historic districts. Local historic districts that have higher requirements as to maintaining historic buildings. So I just, had work out of college where I was studying historic preservation and architecture. And, I found that I felt much more comfortable in a t-shirt and shorts than I did a suit. And I loved messing with buildings, and I really enjoyed working with people. And so it became sort of an easy place for me to land. I had a really amazing opportunity. The first 7 years of my career, I spent working with the National Park Service as a independent contractor. So I wasn't employed by the Park Service, but I had contracts with them where we did training and education and historic preservation, which basically meant that we bring a bunch of people to a site like Harper's Ferry. We bring 1 or 2 people that were apprentice, and which we made an apprenticeship program under the Department of Labor, so we can set up this agreement. And we would just go there and we would show these guys how to roof a wood shingle roof in Harper's Ferry for 3 months. And so it was awesome. I mean, we had a chance to work in some of the most remarkable parks on the East Coast, doing everything from timber framing to wood shingle to stonework to copper work. I mean, it was really, really an amazing opportunity. And we were young and we had a lot of space to travel a lot.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. So, but I finished, well, at the end of doing that, I was under the umbrella of a nonprofit. That relationship, for some reason, a contractor inside a nonprofit doesn't work well. But I did learn how to present forecasts and budgets to a board, which did give me a leg up of understanding how to do books and spreadsheets. That's where my fascination with Excel sort of started.
He really loves Excel. There are people, I don't understand this at all because I do not love Excel, but there are
Pivot
people
tables
in the
are
world
sexy.
that people love spreadsheets. I don't understand. I'm glad that he loves them because it helps me when I have to work on one.
Yeah.
So, so anyway, we decided that the best thing for the two groups to do was for us to split off. So I started Heritage Restoration in 2001 with the same people I was under that nonprofit we had done all the training with, and we had contracts, and and here we are 25 years later, where we went from about 4 of us to now we have 20 of us. And we took some unique things from being in that nonprofit that don't exist much in the trades, which we give 401ks, we pay for everyone's health insurance, we give vacation, we give sick, and birthday cakes.
And birthday cakes.
Nice. Yeah.
You get the
Well,
birthday
at 20, you're almost birthday month type thing. Almost.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's a lot of cakes. I mean, this month has been quiet. I think this June is our quietest month.
It's good. It's good. We don't need to be having
August is usually a killer.
No, and and I wasn't really ready for this quantity of people until about 5 years ago. Because I think there was a lot of fear in being above like 10 or 12, just based on like OSHA stuff and like just all the crazy things, more managers and things that I just thought were bad things. But then the pandemic gave us some guts and we grew a bit.
And the longevity. I mean, you've been around for so long.
Well, and I think we've really seen. I mean, I still think I'm 20, but I think it's weird to say, oh well, when I started, we didn't use a nail gun. There weren't impact drivers. Like it was just a really different. And contracting was different. Like we'd go to the building inspector's office and draw something on a piece of paper and say, I'm going to build this. And then building inspector was like, oh, okay, that looks good. Or you like. We moved like probably half dozen buildings. One of them like 5 miles across.
Wow.
In Massachusetts.
Those were the days.
Yeah. And it was just a much different way of sort of interacting with buildings and manipulating buildings. There wasn't an energy code, so we were pretty scrappy in all the things that we could do. And we had a lot of guts where we would literally manipulate, pick up and dismantle, reconstruct these buildings for the Park Service or other places and people that just kind of gave me this really strange, mix of, being sort of an expert at nothing, but good at everything. It sort of just made us like, I knew a little bit about masonry and so it just made our focus now of just saying I work only on old buildings. It became a lot easier because I worked alongside some of the great craftspeople that taught me, sort of this depth of information that I'll never use other than sometimes saying like, yeah, that's efflorescence and that's not good, but yeah.
I'm just going to add, I know that we're talking about you. Rob really loves old buildings. Like when I talk love, he loves old buildings. Like so you just like preface everything he just said that. No, like you have this genuine
they speak to me
appreciation. I mean, like I remember one of our first dates, we were like walking around Boston and he's like, yeah, that nail is from whenever it was. And I'm like, wow, he really loves old buildings. It's it's admirable. I think.
I thought you liked my dog.
I did like the dog. Okay. Yeah.
Are your dogs' names like Knob and Tube or?
No, her name was Abby. She was a real sweetheart.
So I think it's sort of now I'm able to, and I've been in Rhode Island for so darn long that it becomes like I can walk into a building, and now that I know the industries that were around during the time that this house was particularly built, that I can sort of piece it together and put a timeline together really easy, to say like, oh, this building was, designed and built in 1850s, because of these features that I know were available in Rhode Island at this time, and so it's become really this, I can't help but see it all around me at this point.
Yeah.
Where just and it's kind of neat for people reaching out to us and based on the fact that they really are just curious about their building, or they're like, oh, I know I couldn't find someone to fix my old door. I had someone walk me around today that all their doors wouldn't latch in their house. And they're like, I'm so glad I found someone that'll make my doors, So it's cool to now be sort of that resource for people that doesn't really exist in the world as much, where people are able to fix stuff and build stuff,
right.
And not sort of rely on sort of going to the store and just, buying.
Buying new and Yeah,
Yeah.
throwing away and buying new. So, do you find yourself using like old school techniques and stuff like that in restoration of these buildings to keep the historical significance? Like I'm talking about doing moldings with planes and stuff like that. And
You know, it's rare when how we make it matters.
okay,
You know what I mean? Like, so we can reproduce a bead, you know, with a shaper, and you know, it sort of just matters who we're doing it for. But it's pretty rare when we're actually using scrub planes or something that has to finish it in a way that, you know, can't be fooled enough just by machines and finishing and so forth. You know, but there are times definitely, you know, I feel very fortunate to have people that are artisans that work for me. You know, literal like canvas artists or
Yeah, we have a lot of visual artists working for us. Majority
musicians.
women crew. We have musicians.
Majority women. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's probably about 12 out of the 20 that are women. You know, so it's more of a here's everything that you've got that I've assembled, all the stuff that we can build stuff around you. Now figure out how to make it out of the stuff we got.
yeah,
You know, and then if we can't make it, find somebody else.
yeah. I can definitely see why you got into the finishing business, because then I can imagine, or had an affinity for the finish business, should I say? Because I can't imagine all the things that you had to go into and say, how am I going to color match this trim with something new, and you know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
Because
especially
our best work. Sorry.
yeah, because you got all kinds of things. You got 100 years. You got all the oxidation that's occurred during that time and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and it became really hard to sort of rely on others to sort of help us interpret what we're trying to interpret. But really, our best work is the stuff that you can't see. You know, so you know, there's been a couple shows like production places that have called, you know, asked us, oh, we want to film something of, you know, what that you guys do. And I'm like, well, you realize our best work looks exactly the same. You know, so your before and after, it's going to look exactly the same. You know, it's like, oh,
yeah.
You just made an old house, you know?
Ta-da.
Yeah.
You do get the sometimes like the big remodel, you know, the restoration / remodel where you're going in and like fixing everything and bringing it back, but then redoing the
It's not the
kitchen and
funnest
bathrooms and stuff like
Yeah.
that. You do that stuff too.
Now, the funnest part is like when there's a rotted sill and a frame underneath, and you have to take the whole room apart and then put it all back together and look like you were never there.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, that's like our greatest joy. And you know, there are times like we'll prefer to do the timber frame system rather than introducing 2x4s, hangers, and you know, so forth. You know, there are times that we'll want to respect sort of that original construction method. You know, we have to find engineers, or we have an engineer that will help us do that.
Yeah.
Because not every builder is going to be building that.
Well, so what are some of your favorite projects you've done over the years?
Favorite one, we were fortunate enough to film it. It's on YouTube under Heritage Restoration, but we did this place called the Valentine Whitman House, which is a 1694 stone ender, which is something unique to Rhode Island and Connecticut. It's literally one house, one side of the house is stone, and all the chimneys were in that stone. And then there's a timber frame sort of attached to it.
Yeah.
This place was, you know, 1694, and there was a lime kiln right next to it. So it used a ton of plaster and mortar. It had been unused as a house for 70 years when we got it. Well, when we were asked to do the job. It never had a central heating system, and had bathrooms put in the 1950s, and that was the last time it done. So we made it a single family home with air conditioning, and only took down one wall.
Wow.
All the original doors, all the wiring was on the surface, so exposed conduit. Yep, it was. And I think we only made like 20 holes in the walls, like something ridiculous. So that was my best job.
And the floors are finished with Sutherland Wells.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Mary and I argued over those floors.
Yeah.
But yes.
And they were not sanded down. They were just, they did passive floor restoration, which is just a clean and a recoat.
That's probably
Very nice.
Interesting. Well, before we let you go, what do y'all like to do outside of restoration work and finishing, running a finishing empire?
you got stuff.
I mean, Rob takes care of our house.
Okay.
Which was built in 1908, we believe.
Yep.
So you take your
and-
work home with you then?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's already here.
Cobbler has shoes.
And when I am not at work, I am usually in my studio. I do I exhibit. I have a whole other like life outside of Sutherland Wells. So I'm in my studio making things.
Yeah, you mentioned visual art. So what type of?
Past 5 years, I've been making cut paper stop motion animations and collages.
Oh, cool.
Oh
My master-
wow.
My master's degree is in photography, and I'm very interested in like world building. So I've always like made these little worlds and made photographs of them. But so this is like a different way to do it with movement. Yeah. So that's kind of where I spend my time when I'm not, at work or walking the dog.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, let's move on to our fortnightly beer choices. So I'm just drinking my usual house Guinness. So.
Oh, do you need a beer, Rob, or a drink?
I'll drink this.
You'll drink water.
Yeah,
Okay.
There you go. There you go. So, Brian, what are you drinking? Hopefully, something more interesting than the average Guinness.
Yeah, it's got a cool name. It's called Bunny with a Chainsaw, and
Okay.
that's what the can art is. It's from Paperback Brewing out of Glendale, California. It's a double IPA. It's good. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's tasty.
California IPAs aren't as heavy-handed, right?
Yeah. I mean, like I'm thinking like Russian River type stuff, like Pliny the Elder.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that kind of
over the
stuff.
top, though.
Blind Pig was good. I would rather have those over this one, but this is still definitely drinkable.
Nice.
Sean, how about you?
It as I mentioned earlier, it's been hot and so a nice summertime beer is welcome. And so Dogfish Head Sequench Ale, which is a little limey, ale, and I don't know, it's just kind of sweet and citrusy, and it's very nice on a hot time. Mara and Rob, how about you guys?
I avoid alcohol because I have chronic migraine.
Ah,
That's fair.
that's
fair.
okay.
This
That's
is
fair.
not
Doesn't it-
restricted to
So I
alcohol,
kind of stick
I'll
with
tell you
like
that.
water.
Okay.
Water-
Doesn't have to be
water
alcohol.
Liquid IV.
Yeah.
Rob?
I do prefer tequila.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay.
Anything
Tequila on the
particular?
rocks. Yeah.
Sorry.
Any
What's
brand in particular? Any brand in particular?
I do like Casamigos. To say.
Casamigos.
It is-
Okay.
It's
Nice.
probably one of the smoothest, cleanest that I've had.
All right.
Big fan.
Nice.
Nice.
Well, so where can folks find y'all on the interwebs?
www.sutherlandwells.com. Also YouTube under Sutherland Wells, Instagram at Sutherland Wells, TikTok at Sutherland Wells, and Facebook at Sutherland Wells. And if you're not, I just want to say that the Wood Talk community is great. So if you're not on TikTok, or you are on TikTok and you're a woodworker and you're not part and you don't participate in the Wood Talk community, check it out. It's a fun group of people.
Excellent.
Nice. And Rob, what about yourself? Where can folks, if they have an old house somewhere in the Rhode Island
New
area?
England area. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they can find us at heritagerestoration.net. And we are on all the major socials of Instagram,
Yep.
Facebook, and TikTok.
Also, Rob has a network of preservationists across the country.
Yep.
So if you're a person who has an old home and needs some help with your old home and don't know where to go, you can always reach out to him, and he can probably direct you to somebody in your local area who can help you.
That would be nice. Yeah. If y'all ever come down Texas way, you need to come to Galveston, Texas. It's just chocked full of nothing but old Victorian buildings.
We're going to be at the Texas Woodworking Festival in
Oh
Austin.
heck yeah.
In
Oh yeah, that's
September.
right. We
Yeah.
forgot to even mention that. Yes, y'all will be at the Texas. Well,
Yeah.
that's about 4 hours away. But anyway,
We're
Oh,
I
excited.
yeah.
will be there. I
Kyle
will be
is
there.
a staple.
Come say hi.
at the-
Come visit.
Yes. I think I'm gonna be doing something for Austin. He reached out to me last week and said, "Hey, you got time to do this?" So I went, "Sure, not a problem." So anyway,
Cool.
so I'll
He
be
seems
running
like a
around
good
there.
guy.
Excellent.
So let's move on to our feedback. So what do we got this week, Brian?
All right. So flashing back to Chuck Bender, episode 559 and 560. We have a couple of feedback here. First one is from Brian Creno. It says, great episode. And then we have another feedback here from Owen Maiden. He says, ooh, excited for that one. And then I think it's Jack Nor 42 Jack. Not sure what that means. But he says he's good with a thumbs up. And then we have Patrick Casilli giving us a clap emoji. And then we have some good feedback here from Robert Tolnai, good friend of the show.
Yeah, I think Chuck called him out on that episode too.
Yeah, just a bit. They're a bunch of good guys. It says Chuck is a fantastic person. He was the first person I really connected with in the woodworking community over 20 years ago. It's always great catching up with him. He is a great teacher and maker, and definitely check out his classes. So if you, dear listener, would like to leave us some feedback here, probably the best place to leave it is on the MWA podcast Instagram. And we would also appreciate any kind of high ratings you can give us on like iTunes that helps get the show in front of other people.
And that just about wraps it up for this show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on the podcatcher of your choice. Just search for the Modern Woodworkers Association. And while you're there, please leave us a review. You can follow us on Instagram at MWA_podcast. And if you'd like to support the podcast, go over to patreon.com/MWA podcast. But the best thing you can do is tell a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way in sharing our discussion.